All right, let's talk about the table saw. And we're gonna talk about the difference from what you should do for cutting on the table saw versus the chop saw in both of these videos. Table saw is great for long, flat pieces of wood, like a sheet of plywood or laser wood or MDF. The chop saw you're gonna use for your shorter pieces like 2x4s or anything that you're just gonna do it's skinnier stuff. So long, flat, wide stuff that you need to do long cuts on, that's good on the table saw. The shorter stuff that you just need to shorten, that is a rule of thumb for the chop saw. When in doubt, just ask one of your peers or your teacher to double check that you're using the right tool for the kind of cut that you're going to do. All right, so let's talk about the table saw. Table saw is a saw that is in a table. We have a SawStop. SawStops are awesome because they have a brain inside of them that detects if any electrical current goes through the blade while it's spinning. If it does, it stops the blade immediately. It slams an aluminum brake into it, drops the blade into the table so the blade disappears. If a piece of skin or anything else gets in the way of the saw blade, you'll walk away with a paper cut, but all of your digits, all right? This is true whenever the saw blade is spinning, whether you turn it on to cut stuff or you turned it off and it's still spinning. So always be mindful of the blade. Treat it like there isn't a SawStop, like you will cut your fingers off or an appendage off, but just know that this is a safe piece of equipment because we have the technology in there that will detect for that sort of safety feature, which is awesome. All right, let's go through the different parts of the saw, the table saw itself. We have the table, we have the saw blade that is in here. We have a riving blade, which keeps the pieces of wood separated as you push the material through the saw. This keeps so the blade doesn't get stuck or bound as the wood is going through. There are also a couple of little arms on the riving blade that help the wood from being kicked back as you push it through, because the saw blade is spinning towards you and you're pushing the material away from you. It's a little bit of a battle of physics. As long as you're doing things mindfully and safely, you should be able to push everything through safely. It is a good habit, though, to stand on the opposite side of wherever your fence is if you're pushing a big piece through. Let's talk about the fence. This is the part of the tool that you can set up to have your cuts be precise. There is a ruler built into the table saw, which is pretty cool. You line up the outside line with whatever dimension or measurement you're going for. I am lining up over the 1 foot right here, and the line on the tool that is farthest away from the blade is the one that tells me the dimensions. The reason it's the one that's farthest away is because you can actually take the fence and put it on the other side of the blade if you need to, depending on what kind of cut you're doing, depending on what material you're using. The defaults should be pretty good for you. If you have a question or you think you need to do it a different way, just ask and we will get you set up properly. All right. The on-off switch is a big red paddle over there. It says push to stop. There's also a smaller switch that turns on the brain. The saw won't start without that smaller switch being activated. So you should see a solid green light when the saw is good to go. At that point, you can pull the paddle out and it'll start to go. There's dust collection built into the saw itself. Make sure that you have all of the guards and guides down and locked in. And the blast gate on the dust collection to the back of the saw is open, and that'll help keep the mess and the dust down as much as possible. All right, as far as setting up your saw blade, you're gonna wanna do that every time you have a new piece of material in there. You wanna be able to see the saw blade and about 1/4 of an inch above the material that you're cutting. So you're gonna put your material next to the saw blade, you're gonna loosen the blade adjustment knob, and you're gonna raise or lower it so that the saw blade extends beyond your material just about 1/4 of an inch, pretty much just so the teeth are extending past the blade itself. So you're gonna get a nice clean cut as you push it all the way through. You can also do an angled cut with the saw blade. That is more than just basic level stuff. This is a basic level video. If you think you need to do that, talk through, make sure you have the right idea and the right intent going through that, but it is definitely a possibility to adjust the blade of the the angle of the blade as you push material through. If you've seen any of the French cleats that are all around the shop, that is how we got those. We put the blade at a 45-degree angle and we're able to cut those cleats right into the plywood itself. So you can do a lot with the table saw, but the basic level stuff is make sure that your dimensions are set, make sure your saw blade is set to the right height, and that your dust collection is on. All right, let's talk about getting the saw set up to actually do a cut. Again, long, thin stuff that you're gonna do a long cut all the way through. It is possible to use the table saw to do something called a cross cut, where you are cutting a piece of material in a way that's not our usual long flat piece of material. We have a crosscut sled. If you've learned about that and it's something you need to do, just give a holler. We can get that set up. It takes a little bit of setup on the saw itself, but for the basic stuff, here's how we do it. We got our dimensions set up. We've either measured and set it up, or we're using the ruler that's built into the saw itself. We're going to get our material so it's there. I'm going to do a cut that's 10.5 inches. I've released the knob back here to move the fence around, and now I'm going to lock it in so it can't move anymore. I'm going to take my piece of material, I'm going to push it flush against the fence and straight forward as I push. So if I'm thinking about like my vector force as I'm pushing the material through, it's a little bit of an angle, mostly straight back, but a little bit pushed up against the fence. All right, again, I want to stay out of the way of the saw blade, so I don't want to be right in the way. We have a lot of paddles and push sticks that we can use to help keep our hands safe as we push our material through. All right, so the paddles have rubber on them, the push sticks have an edge on them. They just help you get set up so that you can push your material through without risking your hands. Again, it's a SawStop, you'll be protected and safe, but we also want to keep the tool safe by not having the brake slam down. So the push sticks are going to make it so that you stay more safe than if you're just pushing stuff right through with your hands. When you're ready to go, you're going to turn on dust collection, you're going to start the paddle. We never start our saws with the blades touching the material, and then you're going to push your piece all the way through. All right, let's see what that looks like. All right, so you can see I was using the paddles to keep the material going through smoothly and safely, pushing with smooth force through the saw blade so that it would split into two separate pieces. I got a nice, clean, straight cut perfectly all the way through. If the saw blade gets stuck or the piece of material gets stuck, hit the paddle, stop the blade, don't touch the blade, just stop it, ask for help, we'll get it unstuck. Most of the time what usually happens is that there's a little bit too much of a twisting force going through and the piece of material got jammed up or the saw blade itself got stuck. So when in doubt, if something's going weird or going wrong, turn the saw off, ask for help, and we'll get it straightened out. As far as cleanup goes, pretty straightforward. Remove your material, put any tools that you've used back where they go. The push sticks and other tools like this go in a bin right down here. You're gonna grab the vacuum attached to dust collection or a shop vac. Just hit any sawdust that is on the saw and make sure things are good. If your blade is out significantly, you can, again, loosen and lower the saw blade so that it's below the table, and that'll just make sure things are safe. All right. Happy cutting.